adverts, some public interest adverts, stating, okay, don't spread fake news and so on and so forth. So, and you look at the fact that we are operating within a democracy. Before you know it, if the government gets too harsh, they'll say, it's an authoritarian regime, it's this and that. And so you don't want to affect that, but rather you strengthen those bodies, those as organizations that have the duty, to reduce the impact of fake news. So on the whole, I think the government is doing what it ought to be doing, but maybe there's more that needs to be done, and not necessarily the government, it's you and I.
In Nigeria, the government embarked on aggressive campaigns against fake news, and this has been on different media platforms with advice for the citizens to verify information before spreading.
Well, in this case, technology has caught up with us. It's almost like a catch-22 situation. The media has gone beyond the traditional, conventional kind of media. We now have situations where the internet is available for all and sundry. With some technical know-how, you can create your own blog. So that aspect of editorializing and, editing what may not necessarily be there, what may be sensational, what may create harm, affect sensibilities of society, is no longer there, especially with social media in place. And as a matter of fact, social media is actually more energetic. It's youth-based more often than not, and it multiplies almost faster. And when you distribute fake news, it spreads globally. So the conventional media has a role to play, and which they also do play, because they put in place fact checkers more often than not to determine this is real news or this is fake news, at least to mitigate the effect.
Some have also called on both the conventional media and the social media to do more in verifying information and resist the urge to break the news without due diligence, as some of the information dished out is often swallowed hook, line and sinker because of the perceived believability of such source.
I think what people are those in government sector within the corridors of power are clamoring for is some form of regulation. Fake news have always been there. Even in scripture, the serpent told somebody, the Eve, that if you eat this, it's going to. Fake news has always been there. But it's the media that the government would want to influence the owners of such media to take the right action, because before you know it, when government steps in, it becomes an attempt, so to say, to muzzle, to restrain the freedom of information and freedom of expression, which everybody clamors for, especially in a democratic society like Nigeria. So more or less, the government should interface with those bodies relevant to manage information, to manage the spread of information, even on social media. It's happened in the US, it happened in different parts of the world, China, UK and all, asking Facebook and others to take a step, do what you have to do to reduce or put in place those things that people will look at and say, okay, this is fake news and this is not fake news. But most importantly, it's an individual thing, to stop spreading fake news.
Experts believe in order to maintain open democratic system, it is important that government, private organizations, and individuals work together to solve this problem of fake news. They also harped on the need to promote news literacy and strong professional journalism. Individuals are also advised to be cautious about consumption of information and dissemination of unverified information. Thanks for watching. I'm Lydia Sampson.
Imagine a station where you access information. Think of a station that creates awareness for national development. Imagine a station that prepares you for a bright and greater future. A station for all ages. Documentaries, classroom and television, events coverage, children's programs and variety shows. Always stay tuned to NTA Knowledge on the Star Times platform, channel 359. For partnership, sponsorship and advert placements, contact us on NTA Knowledge. NTA Knowledge, learning to broaden horizon.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the You Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
You can follow us on all our social media platforms: Facebook at NTA Network News, Instagram at NTA Network, Twitter at NTA News Now, YouTube at NTA News Online. Or visit www.nta.ng. For live streaming, visit www.nta.ng/live. Now, you can stay updated on the go, be it on your TV, iPhone, laptop, or iPad, or download the NTA mobile application from your Play Store or App Store. NTA, you can beat the rich.
She cries. She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can watch NTA International live on your TV.
Federal government retains phase 2 of eased lockdown for another 4 weeks with slight modifications.
While primary schools must remain closed, registered pupils may proceed to take the National Common Entrance as soon as it is feasible, provided there is compliance with issued non-pharmaceutical guidelines.
As schools partially reopen ahead of commencement of WAEC examinations, the contamination of federal government colleges commences.
Synergy between Nigerian Army and Borno State government and counterinsurgency contributed to relative peace in the area.
On Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall continue our focus on flood alert. for year 2020.
Right? The heavens have emptied their bowels, so to speak, in different parts of the country. States like Benue, Kogi, Niger, Lagos, and others in southern parts of the country, as someone puts it, are reeling under the deluge of floods. Communities have been submerged, drains blocked, and many people rendered homeless.
Well, Claire, flooding has been a recurrent experience for us as a country, and if we recall the devastation of 2012, and this is despite the fact that seasonal flood alert and early warnings are issued by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET, as well as the Nigeria Hydrological Services Agency, NISA. As you rightly said, rainfall has been heavy and reported in different parts of the country just in a few months. And in June and July, for instance, Akwa Ibom and Kwara states were said to have been amongst the worst affected by the rains.
Indeed, Kingsley, Borno State also has had its own fair share of that devastation arising from flood. An estimated 700 shelters, of course meant for internally displaced persons in that state, were also reported to have been destroyed by flooding. And the Federal Capital Territory also, Kingsley, including the capital city, Abuja itself, have been devastated by severe flooding. And we recall the incident in Giri part of the FCT.
That's absolutely no doubt about that, and Gwagwalada as well, where some houses have already been pulled down. Now, there are also concerns that agriculture, especially food security, could be adversely impacted by the incidents of flooding with severe disruptive consequences for health and other economic activities. Now, you'll recall that NIMET and NISA had indicated in their seasonal rainfall and flooding predictions earlier this year that some 102 communities in 102 local government areas, actually, in 28 states, including the Federal Capital Territory, were at the risk of flooding.
All right. Now, leveraging the narratives of state and non-state actors, and those, of course, will include government, state governments, and others in flood management. Flooding with us here in Nigeria is mostly triggered by human actions and therefore preventable. Now, on their part, the private sector, including multilateral actors in flood mitigation, advise that flooding should be considered as inevitable and therefore would require a holistic and coordinated response strategy.
Well, flood management is implemented on a multi-level basis comprising federal, state, and local governments. It's, however, coordinated by the National Emergency Management Agency. That's when disaster strikes, and that's under the supervision now of the Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Disaster Management and Social Development. Well, regardless, the gap between flood management and outcome is evident in the deluge, in the deluge of flood experience already in different parts of the country.
Indeed, Kingsley, flood management actors place the burden of implementation at the doorsteps of the subnational governments, especially states. Now, the perception is that seasonal predictions by NIMET and NISA are not usually priority for them. So on Good Morning Nigeria today, we will continue to turn attention to response to early warning flood alert by those subnational governments. I am Claire Adelabu Abdul-Razak. Thanking you once again for joining us on the program.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo. I join my colleague Claire to also welcome you to the program. As always, we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, and we are here in our Abuja headquarters studios. Shortly, we shall bring you highlights of the morning news, and later, Bayo Atoyebe, our newspaper reviewer, will be with us to do his usual bit. Right now, let's join Abdul Malik Adio in the studios for the highlights of the morning news. Good morning, Abdul Malik.
Good morning, Kingsley, and good morning, Claire. It's good to have you join us on the morning news. Now, the federal government has retained the current phase 2 of the eased lockdown for another 4 weeks with slight modifications of the existing guidelines. Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, says this follows President Muhammadu Buhari's approval of the 6th interim report and recommendations of the task force.
Reached the conclusion that for Nigeria, It is important to ensure that restrictions are not completely relaxed.
We have made recommendations to the aviation industry to commence the process for opening international airports, provided all existing international and local prevention guidelines on COVID-19 are in place. We encourage work at home policy for civil/public servants below the grade level of 12. However, while primary schools must remain closed, registered pupils may proceed to take the national common entrance as soon as it is feasible, provided there is compliance with issued non-pharmaceutical guidelines.
Now, the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, has announced 354 new cases of COVID-19 in Nigeria. The latest figures released brings the total number of confirmed cases to 45,244 infections in the country. A breakdown of the new cases from 17 states indicates that FCT recorded the highest number for the day with 78 new cases, while Lagos State has 76 new cases, Kaduna 23, Ebonyi 19, Oyo 18, Nasarawa and Rivers State recorded 17 new cases each. Now others are Delta State with 16, Kwara with 15, Akwa Ibom 13, Edo and Ogun recorded 12 new cases each, while Plateau 11 and Kano 9 cases. The day's tally is completed by Bauchi, Borno and Ekiti State, recording 6 cases each. Now, confirmed cases by state, Lagos has the highest number with 15,627, followed by the Federal Capital Territory with 4,241 cases, and Oyo comes in third with 2,825 cases. With the latest development, the total number of active cases stands at 11,884, while 32,430 cases have been successfully treated and discharged. Also, 990 patients died, unfortunately, from the virus. Now, as schools resume ahead of the commencement of WAEC examinations, the federal government is activating environmental health practice volunteer desk for surveillance and enforcement of COVID-19 safety protocols in all 19,000 WAEC centers across the country. Now, this is in addition to the decontamination of the federal government colleges in Nigeria.
The council that regulate environmental health are going to put up a monitoring committee where we are going to deploy a technology using ATP machines so that we can be able to detect the efficacy of these decontamination chemicals that has been used in the schools.
We've mapped out strategies on how they will ensure compliance by both students and staff.
Now, 17 lawmakers of Edo State House of Assembly, including 14 members whose seats were earlier declared vacant, have impeached the Speaker of the Assembly, Frank Okie, and Deputy Speaker Roland Asoro. This was after inauguration of 14 members at an emergency plenary at a private location in Benin.
The Executive Governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Nogagaze Obaseki, we have resolved to give him the necessary cooperation insofar as Edo State will move forward.
Now, residents of Maiduguri have commended the synergy between Nigerian military and Borno State government in the counter-insurgency war, which led to the relative peace being enjoyed, urging aids to continue now that preparations are underway for the return of the internally displaced persons to their communities.
Very good cordiality between the government and the military. And in part of the military, we have seen a lot of success stories in that regard, though there are a lot of rusty areas that currently or very recently has happened.
You are also to note that steps have been taken by some state governments in the Northeast region to ensure the return of civilians back to their towns, villages, and communities. You must take adequate steps to ensure good civil-military relations with the locals in order to win their hearts and minds, and encourage them to willfully avail you with the vital information which you will certainly require to plan and conduct subsequent operations.
This administration under my leadership will continue to support you. I'm aware of your situation on ground. Despite the support that the Nigerian military is giving to you, we are here to support you, and we shall continue to support you.
And those are the news highlights for now. The program continues with Claire and Kingsley. After the break, I'm Abdul Malik at you. Good morning.
You are watching NTA, Nigerian Television Authority. For more information and news updates, visit our website at www.nta.ng, or you can follow us on Twitter at NTA News Now, or you can like us on Facebook at NTA Network News. Stay connected on our YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/NTA News Online. Watch our live stream at www.nta.ng/live. NTA, you can't beat the rich.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Coming up next is newspaper review.
It's a Friday, and Bayo Atayobe is here with us to do his usual. Bayo, good to see you.
Good to see you, Claire. Good morning. Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria.
It's a Friday, and Bayo is here to do his usual. The presumption is that he comes in here only on Fridays. Bayo, is that correct?
Well, Bayo,
that can be one, but the truth of the matter is she comes on Friday.
That's the point.
Yes.
Thank you.
So she should say that, oh, Bayo, I'm here today on Friday to welcome you to Municipal Review.
Agreed.
Okay, agreed. No controversy. All right,
so
should I start?
Kick off, yes.
Okay, let me start with the Daily Independent, and it's quite a busy front page. Quite busy. I don't even know which to start. Okay, the lead story. Outrage, condemnation, trail police invasion of Edo Assembly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 riders. Right there, coming from different groups. This is coup against democracy, recipe for anarchy, that's PDP. Police action, threat to constitutional order, Atiku. This is like 1983 crisis that collapsed democracy, CUPP. Edo will resist Oshomole's coup, Labour Guba candidate. And Edo secretly sworn in as factional speaker of assembly. All right, that's for Edo election. Now, of course, the picture story there shows the supporters of the other part of the PDP at the Edo State House of Assembly complex yesterday when the governor visited the area. And again, you can see, Bayo and Kingsley, you can see the cluster of people. And again, yesterday, the PTF, retained the eased lockdown for another 4. And this is precisely one of the reasons. People are not complying with the social distancing. People are not complying with the use of non-surgical face masks. As you can see there, but what can we say? Let's move on now to other stories on the front page. Despite 2,000 soldiers, bandits sack Katsina communities is trending on the column there. You can see it. 22 killed in southern Kaduna. Details of that on page 6. Now, gunmen kill husband, pregnant wife, 2 others in Bayelsa, unfortunately there, page 6. Now, Sani Briggs Odinkarlo say sudden Kaduna killings. Okay, confirm U.S. terror alert, page 7. Airlines plan sweeping job cuts in response to coronavirus. And the riders there are Surika Labour Ministry intervene in Bristol picketing. Pilots, engineers remain sacked. Bristol. Trending stories at the bottom. INEC introduces portal for viewing election results. That's on page 5. That's interesting. Now, COVID distributes food palliatives worth some billions of naira to households. It's on page 5. Okay, let me just pause a while. Kingsley, you have a story?
Yeah, well, yes, I have the Daily Sun newspaper. Daily Sun has an earpiece. That's a headline beside the name flag. Ipman directs members to sell petrol at 150 naira, that's per litre. And Sheriff's planned shutdown of filling stations. That's the writer that comes with it, with details of the stories. On page 26. Now, lead story says, with a kicker, as government extends eased lockdown, COVID-19, federal government approves gradual resumption of international flights, and civil servants on grade levels 1 to 12 to resume work. Now, you have a number of photographs there on the front page. And then the story from Edo State is also there. Edo, pro-Oshomole lawmakers pick on speaker and deputy. Security takes over. Assembly's roof removed. PDP, APC trade blame. Details can be found on page 6. Senator gives 12,600 bags of fertilizer to Adamawa farmers. That's on page 8. And fresh southern Kaduna attacks claim 33. As protests against bandits and killings ground Casino. Details on page 5. Kakovid flags off 23 billion naira food palliatives distribution for 10 million Nigerians. That's, you find that on pages 25 and 27. Clark, that's Chief Ike Clark, rejects naming rail station after Jonathan, former President Goodluck Jonathan. With details on page 3. Bayo.
Thank you, Kingsley. Let's start with the Edo State House Assembly story that Claire read. What happened is that the day opened with security men found at the entrance of the State House of Assembly. By afternoon, some young men were removing the roof under the guise that the House of Assembly is under repair. By afternoon, another heap of granite was dumped in front of it. Meanwhile, at another location, you recall that Edo State has 25 members. 10 of them had 24 members. 10 of them had resumed. 14 others were not inaugurated, and therefore they had even declared their seats vacant. But within the week, the incumbent deputy speaker declared his allegiance to the candidacy of Governor Ize-Iyamu. He was impeached, and before you knew it, 4 members of the Edo State House Assembly joined the 10 that had been ostracized. They were inaugurated, and they impeached the incumbent speaker, and they now have a new speaker. So you now have Frank, the speaker that was impeached is Frank Okivie. They now have Victor Edoro as the elected speaker and Emmanuel Agbaje as deputy speaker. So you have 2 factional speakers in the Edo State House of Assembly. But the crisis going on in Edo it needs serious attention because the violence is escalating to the extent that very prominent persons are making counter finger-pointing accusations that nobody has monopoly of violence. If you come with violence, we will meet you with violence. It is not tasty at all. In fact, it recalls what Fela once said in his song. He said, democracy, sometimes the way we practice it here, is a demonstration of craze. That is exactly what is happening there. It is not politics. You recall that the Omonobande de Oku Apolopolo appealed the other day that they should spare the people of Edo State with violence. Unfortunately, we are treading that road. Going to COVID-19, the presidential task force...
Sorry, before we leave the subject matter, a while ago, I know he was asleep. You referred to Ize-Iyamu as Governor Ize-Iyamu. Ize-Iyamu is
aspirant.
It's a candidate, so they will say that the NTA has already crowned him governor. The governorship election is coming up.
I apologize for the sleep.
I understand it's a sleep. It's coming up next month on the 19th. It's a messy affair, as you rightly pointed out, and you find that it's jostled for supremacy. The two factions, as it were, of APC earlier on, and now it's APC straight versus PDP, the two leading parties in the state. What happened initially was last year, if you recall, after the general elections in 2019, and the new assembly members were to be inaugurated. Well, not all of them, of course, turned up because, according to them, the notice for the proclamation of the assembly was issued somewhat surreptitiously.
Okay.
And that the inauguration of the assembly then took place at night. And of course, once it took place, then the members who were present voted and elected their principal officers, including the speaker. 14 of them who were not present on that occasion, of course, had kicked against the inauguration of that particular assembly and asking that the notice of proclamation be reissued. And of course, the matter went to court. I'm not sure what the status is. Some of them were out in Abuja here, and others, were also elsewhere. Until, of course, everything now slipped into the governorship election. So that's precisely what is playing out. As you said, there were television footage and still photographs of persons removing the roof and even the dummy mace on top of the building, and then granite also being deposited at the entrance to the assembly. The police and other security agencies were there, so there was no conflict. It was just that it was muscle flexing. That was what transpired.
Basically, there was an addition that Good Morning Nigeria looked at, the security implications. So
that was on Monday.
He said, what did the police, emphasize?
Well, the police said, of course, they would strive to maintain the peace. And we saw that yesterday. As I said, nobody exchanged blows. It was just muscle flexing to say that, no, we will not allow this. There were claims that some persons were going to convene in the house and then take the decision that they eventually took, namely having the 14 members who had not been inaugurated, get them inaugurated, and since they're in the majority, and 3 others who were previously with the 10 have now moved over, so they are now 17, and that's well over 70%. When you look at some of these things, it's a bit funny when you say, what's the fun? Is it in the rainy season that you'll be removing your roof that you want to repair? That's one. And secondly, you say you want to repair, you want to renovate, and you are removing the roof. Do you use granite to fix the roof? Unless they want to cast it. But as I said, these are the latter side of the issues, and we do hope that they will play by the rules and then have a peaceable environment. INEC is already threatening that if there is violence, then the elections, of course, might be impacted.
I think the National Peace Committee should swing into action and get the parties...
Yes, and be proactive.
No, yes. We know that's Bishop Kuka and General Abdul-Salam. Yes. Let politicians behave themselves in the first instance, not that you get into a fight and you say, peace committee, come and separate us that we are fighting. Let them play by the rules.
Well, but you know what that means, Kingsley, getting politicians to play by the rules.
The other worrying story is the issue of...
Sorry, Bayo. Yes. Let me quickly take this so that we can wrap it up because we have limited time. And from the Daily Independent, again, the story is trending above the nameplate. USSD services, banks owe telecoms 14 billion naira, that's NCC. And then again, the federal government extends second phase of ease restrictions by 4 weeks. We've said that. Now, this is an interesting one. Why we can't wear face mask in church? And that's coming from Okote. I want to believe it's Pastor Chris Okote. Well,
he is.
Yes. So those are. Okay, so you have other stories so that you can.
I'm done with the headlines I have on the phone.
And then we have an editorial.
Maybe the update on COVID-19. Well, the ease of lockdown has been extended for another 4 weeks, and expectedly, the Presidential Task Force has expressed concern about the lack of compliance, especially at the state level. And there's a need for us, if we must check COVID-19, to adhere to the protocols. But meanwhile, as at yesterday, we had 354 cases, and these were in 17 states. However, Lagos had the highest, which was 76. It was surpassed by FCT 78. All the other states has less than 23. They had less than 23. So it can be said that within the states, things are now going down. But if emphasis is placed on wearing of face mask, we will be able to further bring the numbers down. Red card is now an offense to cough at a player in the football field. It's a red card offense. This is a rule that has been introduced from the development of COVID-19.
Okay, so you can't cough.
So if you cough at an opponent by way of reacting or revolting, it's a red card offense.
How does that happen?
All kinds of oddities you have to deal with.
COVID-19 is changing the whole way we do everything. And in Bauchi State, the governor, Bala Mohammed, has appointed a special assistant for women affairs, unmarried women. You recall?
On what?
Unmarried women. Special assistant for unmarried women.
Unmarried
I think, yes, the proper title should have been special assistant for spinsters. You remember in Imo State we had special assistant for happiness?
Not special, well, commissioner.
No, commissioner.
Oh, it was a ministry of happiness.
Okay.
So I don't know what else.
Please, let me take this editorial.
Very soon, in gender sensitivity, they will agitate for special assistant for bachelors.
Big time.
Don't go there, Bayo.
Okay,
I'll
stop.
Don't go gender issue.
I've stopped.
Please, let me take the editorial so that you just accommodate it in less than a minute. The director is telling me. And the editorial is taken from what paper is this? Daily Trust.
Daily Trust.
Yes, and it's centered on the new national forest policy. And just the focus, when, of course, all hands must be on deck to plant a tree. And of course, the ministry authorities involved, responsible, should ensure as much as possible that they secure the existing forest from criminals and saboteurs.
Yes, the national policy on forestation has been there since 2006. But now, government is now alive because the forest, one, is suffering from deforestation as a result of logging and also cutting down wood for firewood. Ironically, we don't want the wood to be cut for firewood, but petrol is now cheaper than kerosene that the rural people will use for cooking. So we apparently are shooting ourselves in the leg. We don't want people to use charcoal, to use firewood, but kerosene is beyond the reach of the ordinary man. But the editorial is emphasizing that if we want to achieve a success in our forestation policy, we must make sure that certain factors are taken into consideration. One, take over the forest to stop criminals from dominating it and using it to vent their attacks on society.
Kingsley.
All right. Well, that's the surprising thing about kerosene is that in the past you used to see jerry cans of patrons at gas stations, that's to say filling stations, trying to buy kerosene. I don't longer see that. So maybe kerosene is now so commonly available that they no longer bother. It used to be an issue, or is it no longer an issue?
Indeed, it used to be an issue. I also observed, even right here within the Federal Capital Territory, there are parts of filling stations, petrol stations, where you could find long queues of
jerry cans.
It was 50 naira, 70 naira, 100 naira a liter. Now it's 200 and something naira a liter. So
and nobody is complaining.
Nobody is going for it.
Yes.
All right. So, well, gas is cheaper, by the way.
All right.
And more delicate to manage.
We have to sign off. Bayo, as usual. I didn't have to use my red card.
Yes.
So. All right, Bayo, thank you.
Because it didn't cough and it's not the Premier League.
Bayo, have a wonderful weekend.
Too.
All right, that's it for this part of the program. We'll be right back, and then when we come back, we'll start our conversation. Don't go away. Welcome back. If you just joined in, you're watching Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA from our Abuja studios. Today, again, we'll be focusing on flood alert. And of course, you know the reason. In different parts of the country, communities have been submerged by flood, and of course, properties and lives lost and damaged. But let's take this excerpt from the previous program on this, of course, previous edition of Good Morning Nigeria, and it was compiled by our correspondent Uyemi Ajayi.
Water is being released from the dam, gradual release of water, at about 5 million cubic meters of water daily in July. They have been notified. It will increase to 10 million cubic meters of water by August. By September, water released from Oyan Dam will be about 18 million cubic meters of water daily. And by the peak of it is October. They have been informed that close to 23 million cubic meters of water will be released every day. So this has been done around April or May. They've been notified about all this. Going by the records available, NAMED prediction, local rainfall within the area, because they also have their equipment to measure.
Why has it been so difficult for them to adhere strictly to mitigation procedure, especially when rainfall and flooding are predictable?
One thing that is responsible is the low capacity of the agencies that should respond to flood at the state level. The State Emergency Management Agency or agencies at the state level, many of them don't have capacity. They are not being funded. They can't even organize meetings of stakeholders that should take actions. Another reason is political reasons. FCT is the only one I know that is demolishing houses because the minister is not going for election. It's not a political, it's not a governor. But many of the states, if the development control at the state level want to go to demolish houses, they will receive a call from the political power. Don't go, election is coming, local government election is coming, another election is coming, because they don't want to lose election.
We need to understand that everybody is not and must not be above the law. And the law for development control, the law for inspection is very, very important. And the court is very clear. Everywhere in the world, we don't have to wait for the court to come to us, but we take the court to where we are doing development control. You don't need the court to come. You don't need the owner to take you to court. You are going with your court, with your judge. As soon as you give the first notice, the second notice, the third notice, you go with your court. You judge him there, you penalize him here. If you're taking him to prison, you take him to prison. I have done that in Kaduna when I was Director of Public Health and Laboratory Services of KEPA. We have taken them to court straight from where they have committed the offense.
For instance, the FCT, you look at the urbanization, which is one of the consequences of urbanization is flooding, because all the land areas have been covered, and population also, population explosion in the FCT. You'll agree with me that the FCT that is planned is not the FCT that we are today, because the population in the FCT overstretch all the facilities that we have, including land. Lokogoma area, where it is planned to be the third phase of development of the FCT, is now encroaching into the second phase of the development. And that is the reason why we are having consistent and persistent flooding in the Lokogoma area, because there is no adequate engineering infrastructure.
All right, that was the excerpt from our previous edition of Good Morning Nigeria, and it looked at the seasonal rainfall prediction by NIMET and, of course, NISA. And you listen to the contributions, some of the contributions from our guests. Now, we have all our guests here in the studio. Two of them are actually right here in the studio. The others will be joining us via Skype from different parts of the country. But let me quickly start my introduction with Ibrahim Inga, if I'm correct, is the Director General Niger State Emergency Management Agency. I'd like to welcome you to Good Morning.
Good morning.
All right, and shall we introduce our guest? Okay, we have also here with us. Okay. All right, Kingsley.
Well, that's right. We are having some technical issues to sort out with our Skype connection. 3 other guests are supposed to be with us via Skype from different parts of the country. We're expecting, once the connections are sorted out, from Asaba, that's Delta State, from Abakaliki, Ebonyi State, and also from Akure, which is Ondo State. So if the engineers give us the okay, then we could introduce those other guests. But we'll also be joined in our studios here shortly by an official from the Federal Capital Territory Emergency Management Agency. But let's bring in first Ibrahim Anga, who is the Director General of the Niger State Emergency Management Agency. Once again, I'd like to have you. Of course, Niger State is uniquely positioned on account of the fact that it bears the River Niger, which is one of Nigeria's 2 principal river sources. And already in 2020, we are seeing some impact of rainfall and attendant flooding. What is it that you have also found as an emergency management agency with regard to the flooding alert for 2020?
Yeah, good morning. Let me start by one. You mentioned River Niger. We also have River Kaduna, which is crisscrossing part of the Niger State. And we have major tributaries crisscrossing the state. And we are housing 3 hydrological dams, and the 4th one is on the way. And looking at the landmass, Niger is having 10% of the total landmass of the country. And close to 60 to 65% of it is being surrounded by rivers around the state. And year in, year out, we are much familiar with the issue of flooding, and the mitigative measures we are putting in place as soon as we have a warning alert by NIMET. Traditionally, we swung into action to sensitize our locals. We are on it, and we have not relent, and we keep sensitizing them on the danger and the effect of the flooding. We've been having some issues with them, but in recent time, they've come to realize taking the warnings from the professionals. And each time we have an issue of flooding, usually the effect used to reduce because the sensitization exercise is giving us a very good result.
All right, I'm told we can now connect with all our guests. Let me once again welcome Florence Wenegieme, who is the Deputy Director, Forecasting, Response and Mitigation, FCT Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. She's right here with us. Thank you very much, madam. And sorry for the slight inconvenience.
That's all right. Good morning.
All right, Kingsley, you've got the next introduction.
Well, we have joining us via Skype from Akure, that's the Ondo State capital, Professor Zachariah Adeyewa. He's of the Department of Meteorological and Climate Science, but is also Deputy Vice Chancellor of the Federal University of Technology, Akure, and is President of the Nigerian Meteorological Society. Professor Adeyewa, a pleasure to have you with us on the program this morning.
Good morning. I'm happy to be here. I just want to say that I am not the present Deputy Vice Chancellor of FUTA. I was the Vice Chancellor of Regimas University, and now I'm the Director of WASCA, Climate Change and Sciences. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you very much. This is part of what we're trying to clarify early on, because we have so many titles against your name. One Dean, another one Deputy Vice Chancellor, Development, Academics, Fellow, and President. But regardless, thank you very much for the correction. Joining us from Abakaliki is Dr. Philip Uche Echiegu. Abakaliki, this time via Skype, Project Coordinator, Nigeria Erosion and Water Management Project of Ebonyi State. Can we have Dr. Philip Uche Echiegu on the screen now, if it's been sorted out?
Good morning to you and good
All right, it's not there yet. From Asaba, from Asaba, Delta State Capital, we're being joined by Caro Ovemeso, Executive Secretary, Delta State Emergency Management Agency. If we have Caro from Asaba, that should be on the bottom of the right side of your screen. Caro Ovemeso, Executive Secretary, Delta State Emergency Agency. Pleasure to have you also on the program.
Thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians.
All right.
I'm happy to be here.
All right, gentlemen, thank you for joining us. So let's just keep you on hold while we continue our conversation. Kingsley started with
I was just wondering, Claire, if you don't mind, now that the Skype is good, before they will start losing their connections.
Okay, so we
took a while to establish them. Yes.
Okay. Yes. Okay, so let's begin from Ebonyi State, where we have Dr. Philip Uche Echiegu, Project Coordinator, Nigeria Erosion and Water Management Project in that state. Can you share with us the experience of Ebonyi State with regards to flooding this year?
Good morning once again. The states over the years have suffered a lot of flood challenges, both in the rural areas and in the capital city of Abakaliki. And this year, of course, the rain came quite early, and there are some parts of the states that experienced this flooding again, and also the capital city. But due to the ongoing construction works by new map, particularly in the capital city, the experience was not all that bad as it used to be. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's join Caro Ovemeso of Delta State. Tell us, what is the situation now? Because we know that this month, August and September, could be heavy in terms of flooding. And of course, Delta State, as the name implies, bears the rush of waters from the River Niger up from Futajalon. So what is the situation now in Asaba and elsewhere in Delta that are usually flooded?
Well, presently, the situation is still not as fearful as it used to be. We are just experiencing minor flooding in some of the riverine communities. Asaba is a little bit better this year because of the drainage program of the governor. Before, when we got the alert from NIMET and NISA, government started clearing drains and all that. And because of the sensitization, everybody is trying to ensure that those flood-prone areas, a lot of fixation of the drainages are done, so that the issue of flood for now, we are just experiencing a little of flash flood here, a normal rainfall that is increasing the water. But by September, we know it will be worse than what we are experiencing now. But naturally, because of some of the job the governor has done, the problem is not as bad for now as it was last year. That's the situation on ground for now.
Okay, so let's bring in our guests from Akure in Ondo State. That's Zakaria Debo Adeyewa, Head of Department of Meteorological and Climate Science. I'd just like for us to do a little bit of comparative evaluation from 2012 and 2018, when we experienced, very devastating, flood in different parts of the country. In terms of impact and mitigation, how can you evaluate our response?
Well, thank you very much. Good morning, Nigerians. I would say that the year 2012 was really bad. 30 states out of 36 states in Nigeria were flooded. It was so bad. Now, I would say that this year is not so bad. In southwestern parts of Nigeria, we are now experiencing the little dry season, according to the forecast of NIMET, of course. I would say that from climatological or meteorological point of view, the flooding has increased systematically over the last 20 years in Nigeria, and we are now being categorized as a climate change vulnerable country. And I would say that the incidences of flooding, they have increased. Unfortunately, we have been having much more losses, over time. So I would say that because of the population growth and, of course, climate change and other things, these things are bound to happen. So some states are doing very well. The federal government is also trying, but we need to do much more to ensure that we mitigate in terms of preparedness, in terms of infrastructure, and in terms of our cleanliness, particularly in the urban areas. Thank you.
I was just wondering, Prof. Adewa, still with you, what do you find as the general attitude towards flood management? Some persons would argue that there is a certain resignation to say this is an act of God. It's a natural occurrence, rain falls, and of course flooding occurs. And after some months, you get back to the dry season when the damage already would have been done. Are we sufficiently attuned to intervening as humans in the seasonal flooding that we find? And as you said, 2012 being a watershed, and ever since, the consequences have not been any better.
Is that we have two types of flooding, anthropogenic, that is man-made, and natural. Natural because of the extreme rainfall, what we call synoptic system in meteorology, could cause extreme rainfall and cause flooding. But we also have, like you said now, man-made. Now, we cannot do anything about the one that is caused by climate change or by natural causes. But then we have to do something about ourselves. That is to say, our own attitude. How do we respond in terms of preparedness? How do we ensure? I'm grateful that when NISA came up with its plan, with the annual rainfall forecast, preparedness and so on, many states of the Federation began to clean the drainages and so on, and waterways and so on. And in cities like Ibadan and so on, we have a governor now who is up and doing, and many parts of the country, people are cleaning up the drainages, and they are refusing to allow these wastes and other things to clog our water system. But we need a kind of concerted, what I would call integrated management and control system, which of course includes the information, communication to our people to ensure that we don't just throw things around, that we ensure that we do things properly. Governance is also very important. In other words, we need to clean the drainages very well and keep them clean. And we need to build infrastructure for these drainages to keep open during this season and keep maintaining them, because one flood is enough to clog our system, and if another one comes in the next few days, it can be very bad. So I say that the attitude has not been quite bad, but because of population increase, we need to do much more. We need to keep pace with population, which is the major issue in urban areas in Nigeria. We're talking of Kano, we're talking about Lagos, Ibadan, and other places where government is just trying to catch up with the population increase and infrastructure in some built-up areas.
All right, thank you. I hope, Kingsley, we can come back to the studio for a while now and then get Mrs. Wene GMA, Deputy Wene GMA. Okay, thank you, Director, for correcting me. Deputy Director, Forecasting, Response and Mitigation of the FCT. Flooding, we understand, is a phenomenon of climate change. And for us here, it's mostly, caused by our actions. So it's mostly preventable. We could prevent it. So from the angle of response, or let me even not say response, from the angle of enlightenment and education, what is state actors like yours, how are you handling it? How are you approaching it?
Thank you very much. Once again, good morning, viewers. FCT, Emergency Management Agency, we work around the clock, and what we do, we start from the beginning of the year. Immediately after NIMET predictions, what we did first was to go out on a comprehensive assessment carried out by FEMA and other stakeholders, Department of Engineering, Development Control, Environmental Protection Board, Satellite Town Development, and other stakeholders. We carried out a comprehensive assessment of the entire FCT, all the 6 area councils, especially locations that are always flooded and prone to flooding. Not just the places that were flooded, but other locations that are on floodplain area. Yes. So we carried out the assessment and we came up with a result. Like the Galadima roundabout, what we discovered there was that the slip road from Games Village towards Galadima roundabout to the airport, where we had an incident, we recorded an incident last year. What we discovered there was that that road was very low. So FCT administration is trying to see how we can increase the height, the level of that road to increase it. And then the box culvert within that location is also narrow. So we have expanded and we are trying to see that the ongoing construction work there will soon be completed. Then the axis of the Kogoma, the same thing, like you had in your previous program, is the third phase of the FCT. But that notwithstanding, they are working on the infrastructures to ensure that they are all put in place. But a temporary structure is being going on. They are trying to see how much they can work on the road and on the box culvert and bridges that are supposed to be.
Are you the assessment you're doing? Is it something you just started, and that's one? And what is the magnitude of impact this year compared to what in previous experiences?
No, it's something, the assessment is, we carry out the assessment every year. At the beginning of the year, immediately after NIMET's predictions. Okay. After the assessment, we go on with early warnings. So we carry out this assessment, like I said, in collaboration with other stakeholders. Then early warnings follows, and the FCT administration are working tirelessly to see that they put everything in place. In the area councils, we do the same thing. We carried out the assessment and then we created awareness, early warnings. After that, we called for an annual review meeting with some of our stakeholders, including local divers. We have response team that we put in place in all the 6 area councils alongside with the local emergency committee.
But what's the magnitude of impact this year?
This year, it so happened that the incident we have recorded so far are just new locations, like that of Giri and Dogongada. They are new locations that have just been discovered. We discovered such locations after the incident happened, and they are already working on it. Giri especially, the houses are being built on waterways, and they were marked for demolition. It was just before they went for the demolition, because what we do is we have to follow due process. And when we follow due process, we give them some time. It was marked on the 13th, and the final demolition notice was served before they went on the demolition. That was when that incident struck on that 25th of July. And that was what happened.
Yeah,
but we are actually, the FCT administration is actually working on it. All hands are on deck now. Apart from that, we have been creating awareness, trying to make sure that people no longer build on waterways, advising them to move out of the floodplain areas, to move to higher grounds. And that is what we have done so far.
Well, as I said, thank you very much for your explanation. I think the FCT has already pulled down some structures in Gwagwalada area.
Gwagwalada and Giri.
This year, on account of the devastation that occurred some weeks ago when flash floods swept through those communities. And last year, as we were talking about the Garadimawa roundabout, the director unfortunately lost his life when he and his driver were swept away. monitoring driver survived. But let's bring in again the Niger State Emergency Management Agency. We all know the geography of Niger. Your governor was somewhere in Suleja the other day and warning and advising people living in low-lying areas to relocate. But it's almost a yearly thing that the flood comes, wipes out whatever is in its path, and then everybody, dry season comes, everybody goes back to business as usual. How challenging is it for you as a state entity to manage flood and flood disasters?
Yeah, first of all, I need to make some explanation so that we get it clear. Niger State, we're having a peculiar issue different from other states. We have about 16 local government that traditionally we know year in, year out, they're affected by flood. In that aspect, the governor have directed the relevant agencies and Ministry of Works to design a platform that will move away from having this experience of year in, year out, will be crying out loud for support, for help. We've now come up with a two-abort system for the 16 local government, which we have already 13 resettlement sites.
Sorry, what makes those areas you've mentioned prone to flooding? What exactly is the factor?
Yeah, the local government are located around the riverine areas. Okay. So, and we've been engaging the locals to discuss with them on the dangers, the effect that flooding used to come with every year, and we discovered that they are so much attached.
Is the flooding as a result of overflow of the river banks?
Yeah.
Or the one that comes from when the dams are, when the dams release water?
The two factors conjoin.
Okay.
And we've discovered recently that even the rivers are becoming silted, so also the dams are silted too. Small amount of water will make the river banks and the dams overflow and take over to the upper land. So we have designed a two-abort system, which we have identified 13 resettlement sites, which we have a pilot scheme of about 3, and His Excellency have directed the Ministry of Agric, because it affects farmers mostly. And the reason why these farmers are attached to these riverine areas, after the flooding, the environment, if they plant anything, they used to have a bumper harvest. That's true. So, and if you engage them in discussion, they will tell you, some of them, how they believe that the flooding situation is kind of periodic of a thing. But due to climate change and some of the environmental factors, population growth, have now made it every year a yearly occurrence of the flood. So the communities now have agreed, give us a place, we will move. But the program is capital intensive.
You know, we've been hearing this narrative since 2012, because I remember I was one of those who covered the flooding from that angle in 2012. And that particular community, I can't readily remember the name of that community. The whole of that community, was practically taken over by, flooding, necessitated from the River Kaduna also, the tributaries. Yeah. So we've been hearing the narratives of, okay, we've asked them to relocate, we're building, upland for these people to go and all that. This is since 2012. So between 2012 and now, what had actually happened?
Yeah, you see, we came 2015.
Yes.
And we saw the pictures and what had happened. The governor took it as point of duty that it is no longer talking anymore. It is action. And that is why 2018, we designed a program for the riverine communities, dry season farming, which was anchored by State Ministry of Agric, which have given us an insight to what we are supposed to do. And that is why we come up with this two-abort system, so that in the end, we'll be out of running helter-skelter, there's flood, there's flood, there's flood. Because that one we have discovered It is a natural thing, and we can't do anything about it, is to move our people to the upland. Then coming to the urban centers, so far so good. When we came on board, the desiltation of waterways in the major urban areas is something else. His Excellency have directed NESEPA, that is the environment people that are saddled with the responsibility of desilting the waterways. It is now a compulsory yearly event. The moment we have predictions, we desilt the waterways, and so far so good. We would not have any instead of flooding in our urban centers. That one that happened in Suleja is just like what my colleague said. It's a dimension of flooding entirely. We have never had an incident towards that area, and all the buildings that were affected were built on waterways. And there and then His Excellency have directed that all buildings on waterways should go so that lives and property be saved.
Thank you very much. So the buildings will go, where will the people go to?
Yeah, we have arranged, there's a machinery in motion. We are looking at how we can make a provision. He made it clear that buildings with CFO, urban development, Ministry of Works, they should sit down and fashion out a very good plan for those people to be accommodated.
But Kingsley, some of those people, those areas are their natural, I don't know, traditional homes.
Habitat.
Yes, habitat. So would they also need to present a CFO, or a place they call their traditional habitat?
No, that one you are talking about,
yes,
has to do with the locals, that of at the rural areas.
Yes.
Government is putting all machineries in place to get an upper land. The government is paying the due compensation for them to move. Nobody is charging them one dime.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Once again, let's return via Skype to Abakaliki, the project coordinator of the Erosion and Water Management Project in the Ebonyi State, Dr. Philip Echegu. We earlier introduced him and he spoke to us once. Dr. Echegu, an interesting point that Ibrahim Anga raised here, and of course our water experts on Good Morning Nigeria have also mentioned this. Flooding per se is not bad because floods, they argue, bring nutrients and minerals which, once they are deposited on the soil and you plant on them, the harvest is usually a bumper one. And we know that Ebonyi is largely agrarian. You are one of the leading rice producers in the country. But there's also another very important point that is talked about. Dams and rivers are silted, and there is no desiccation during the dry season. And of course, I see that you are involved here in water management. We have had guests on Good Morning Nigeria who have also talked about this, that we have poor water management, which is partly responsible for what we find, not just the problem with human beings and their activities in urban areas, but generally with our rivers and water systems. What is the situation in Ebonyi State?
Thank you very much. Let me, first of all, explain what the general situation of the environment looks like. The whole of Ebonyi, in fact, 2/3 of Ebonyi is underlain by this shell. And one of the properties of the shell is that it doesn't allow for easy permeability of water. And part of the problem also is that the entire, particularly in the cities, because of the population, have been built, all the built up areas is action, and governor, able governor, who is doing quite a lot to fasten the development, has done quite a lot in terms of making sure that all the roads that are constructed.
Dr. Chebu, we have to put you on pause so that our engineers can rectify your audio connection. with us, or well, we're having internet connectivity challenges, I'm told. So we just put you on hold for a while and return to you later. So let me bring in Mr. Zakaria Adeyewa, Head of Department Meteorological and Climate Science. We've all talked about what could, be a cause factor in flooding experience in, different parts of the country. But could the absence of interlinkages of flood management infrastructure be a critical factor?
Well, thank you very much. The causes of flooding, of course, will have to do with the texture of the land. If we had just told us the kind of texture of the land, in some cases, the water sinks so easily, but in some areas, it doesn't, and it causes flood. But the fact of the matter is that when we are well prepared to manage the flooding by building levees, dikes, and so on, and making sure that our drainages are clean and well managed, in some cases, you find that the drainages in some cities are too small. And then when the flood water comes, it becomes so bad. I remember many years ago in Benin, any little rain, even in Ibadan, it was like that. But then the Odgumpa was enlarged, and that reduced it. So I want to say that our governments, our local governments, state governments, and so on, will have to be up and doing to do a better job, because, like I said, the climate change system is affecting the whole world. And for Nigeria in particular, Nigerian system, at least 20% of people are affected by floods, and most of them in the urban areas. So what we can do is to ensure that we build infrastructure that is solid and that we maintain this infrastructure. I'm sure that if we wake up to the call of building sustainable systems, all these issues of flooding will be gone, except, of course, for the natural ones that may happen at the coastal regions and the river, Benue River, Niger, and other places along the coast of Nigeria and the riverine areas. So I'm sure that infrastructure is the best answer to this, and attitude also in terms of ensuring that our people are doing the right thing and maintaining infrastructure and living happy and hygienic lives.
Well, Prof, thank you very much. We'll come back to you. Let's bring in again Carol Vermeso of the Delta State Emergency Management Agency. Executive Secretary, tell us something. Well, we know that September might be a critical month in terms of managing the flood that is going to come. How much interagency cooperation is there in Delta? And then how much intergovernmental collaboration is also available? Interagency, of course, I would imagine your Ministry of Environment, your Ministry of Water Resources, and then intergovernmental, state, local, and state and federal.
Good morning. I am not the Executive Secretary, let me correct that. I'm the Director of State Emergency Management Agency of FEMA Delta State. Naturally, the state collaboration is quite great. We collaborate with the relevant agencies like Environment, Ministry of Works, Water Resources, Agri, like you have said. Presently, in the issue of flooding, a lot of work has been going on by Environment. When we got this annual flood outlook prediction from NIMET and NISA, different agencies were requested to hold a meeting and see how they can go ahead. We were informed to clear the drains and prepare for the flooding that is imminent, which is normal. Every year it must come. It's just the level that is the problem. But presently, I'm sure this year, because of the level of preparedness, but can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr.
Okay. So there's a lot of collaboration even within the local government and the communities. Our national orientation agency is going around, and normally when the thing comes like this, the state government normally set up a management committee which involves both the local government, the states, and agencies that are necessary. Suddenly, we are prepared, and the government, like the other colleague mentioned about small drainages, the state government has improved seriously on the level of drainage infrastructure development in the state. If you come to the capital city and other cities across the state, there is a lot of work going on to ensure that the level of flooding will reduce. Water is being directed out of the relevant areas where they are normally flooded. And some people who decided to build into flood-prone areas houses have been demolished. They have been told to move. And the different communities, because of their sentimental attachment, they are not always ready to move. We're sensitizing them to move upward, because the management of flood this year is not going to be the way it used to be because of the pandemic, unlike bringing them to a gathering point and all that. It's not going to be easy. So a lot of policy process is going on to see how we can ensure that we manage it properly this year. Naturally, the flood must come with the level of capacity. The rain, because of the level of our communities, Delta State is purely riverine. Most time, about 17 to 19 local governments are affected. Even some areas of the capital city, because you know the capital city is also close to the river Niger. So some of the people in the riverine areas of the state are also affected. But a lot of sensitization is going on. Ministry of Works is doing a lot of work. Environment is working. The Orientation Agency is working. And water resources were doing their best to also ensure that this year it will be better than what it used to be. Thank you.
I'm just wondering, Mr. Ovemasot, thank you very much. You are in Asaba, and so we can talk about Asaba, as you've also been talking about Asaba. But there are a number of other towns and cities in Delta that are often usually impacted by urban floods, Sapele, Warri, Urele, and all of those other locations. So what is the state of preparedness of either the residents or the appropriate agency in, first of all, clearing the drains and ensuring that urban flooding isn't much of a challenge this year?
The job that is going on is not only in Asaba. We're not concentrating in Asaba. The whole state that is being attended to. If you go to Warri, there's a massive clearing of drains in that area. You go to Sapele, the same thing is going on. It's across the state. We don't normally concentrate only on the state and the state capital. A lot of work, the different agencies are going around the whole state to work. Sensitization is also going on. People are being informed that
sorry.
There's a freeze there. That's why we're saying.
You predicted this.
That's right. That's typical. It's the internet connection where they are located. Yes.
All right. Let's bring in the FCT Emergency Management Agency Deputy Director here. The private sector, and indeed the big multilateral organizations that are also part of the actors in flood management and mitigation, would say, look, to address this issue, you would require a strategy, a broad-based strategy. And one of that strategy would, consist of having an infrastructure, flood management infrastructure that, interlinks the different, areas or communities and channels, either flood water, surface runoff water, into a bigger source, maybe rivers and all that. Do we have such master plan? Are we working with such master plan in the FCT?
Yes, Abuja has a master plan. Like where the rivers from the axis of Apo, Lokogoma to Galadima, we have about 6 rivers there that converge towards that location. The water is channeled to go straight to the River Niger. And in Lower Usman Dam, when we talk about dams, we have a buffer dam in Lower Usman Dam now, where when the water is in excess, it flows into that, and that is what we have done. And at the same time, we make sure that all the waterways are being free. Every month, we don't wait, FCT administration doesn't wait till during the rainy season before we deseal our drainages. What we do is we deseal drainages from time to time, 2-3 times in a month. And within this period of the rainy season, it's been done almost every week. You see the facility maintenance department, they go around to make sure they desealed the drainages. That is what we do. And then, like I said earlier on, we are trying to see that we free the waterways. All the waterways are being channeled towards the River Niger.
Earlier on, in your response to our earlier question, you talked about the fact that the flood incident at Giri, yes, it's a new case.
Yes, the first time.
It's the first time that would happen.
Yes.
And I'm wondering what precipitated that, because Giri has been in existence for quite some time. It was there in 2012 when we experienced the flood. It was there in 2018. So what is it that has happened in that area of the FCT that,
Yes, that is because new houses came up. A lot of houses came up within this year, and they were all built on waterways. That family of 5 that was swept away, the house was right on a waterway, and behind the house is a river. There are a lot of houses beside that river. If you listen to the Minister of State when she visited Giri, she mentioned it and she told them, she said, for us to be free from this and to avoid this from happening next year, we have to pull down some structures. You have to cooperate with us because all these houses are being built by the river bank. Most of them are built on waterways. And that was the cause. That was the major cause. And again, don't forget that it has been focused that this year we are going to experience a lot of flash flooding within the FCT. So due to the heavy downpour on that fateful day, the water, if you look at Giri is facing a hill across the road. If you are going to Gwagwalada, Giri is on the left. If you stand in Giri and you face this other direction, they are all farmlands, and a hill. The water just dropped from there and came with that force. Water must find its way. And that was what happened.
Well, I was going to just remind you that in the first part of this conversation that we had some weeks ago, excerpts of which we listened to before we introduced you and then started discussing this, the issue of town planning intervention before disaster strikes is very important. Yes, you said that suddenly you had houses. These are usually emergency structures that have been constructed in Giri or elsewhere around the Federal Capital Territory. Where were the planning officers when these houses were being put up? Now, after the disaster, we've said, and it's very painful, for families to be at the mercy of nature, as it were, even though they themselves had courted that disaster. But when those houses were being put up, where were the officials to say, X, and then, of course, you follow due process as speedily as possible, and then take them out of harm's way?
Yeah, what happened was that most of this, like Giri, there's a settlement for Giri, but most of the indigenes, they will always tell you that this was their father's land. They were born and brought up there. They wouldn't want to leave that place. They were supposed to move further inside to higher lands. They have been relocated. But when they moved, the local chiefs sell this land to a lot of people. And the people will go there without investigations.
That's right.
They don't carry out investigations. They start putting up structures without even approval. So development control, they keep going around. When they discover this, they mark and then follow due process before the demolition. It's not as if they were not relocated. The real indigenes, most of them moved out of that place. They are visitors that were there. And what we did was, we have always told them during our sensitization, we tell them, please, before you buy a land, carry out your own investigations.
That's what they call a search.
Carry out a search. Find out the nature of that environment. And again, we have always told them, don't buy a piece of land during the rainy season. You want to buy a piece of land? Don't buy a piece of land during the dry season. It's better you buy it during the rainy season.
Or you better you go and survey.
You go and survey yourself
during the rainy season.
During the rainy season, before you buy. But what they do when they go to a particular location and they tell them this plot you have to pay 500,000. They go to another location, they say bring 100,000. Quickly they say this one is better, not knowing that place is a flood-prone area or it's a waterway. The owner just wants to get rid of it and grab whatever he can get. And that is what has been happening. That is the beginning.
A part of what you're just explaining now, I think it also used to be a common piece of advice to house hunters in Lagos that if you want to rent a property, don't do so. Try not to do so during the dry season.
Exactly.
Because you can see the house may have been repainted and the watermark has been erased.
Yes.
So when rainy season comes, you just be sleeping and then you just find yourself floating along with your
that reminds me.
Yes.
But how are you addressing the issue of Lokogoma? Because that's another area in the LCC,
Lokogoma, like I said, is phase 3 of the FCT. Right now, they are working on the infrastructures. But don't forget that FCT, we've not finished with the second phase of FCT. Then Lokogoma came up. So what we are trying to do is to just see how we can just secure that place, make it a little bit habitable. We cannot be perfect. Even the houses that were demolished last year, I bet you go back there today, you discover that they tried to put up something and they are managing, they will say they are managing. But we are not relenting. We are still going back there. Development control is on their toes. But what we have done, like I said earlier on, in the engineering department, they are working tirelessly to see how they can just improve on the infrastructures they have around there. But even with the efforts they are putting, if you go to a place where we have a Mountain of Fire, there's a waterway there. The Mountain of Fire Church has put up a retention wall there. They have marked it. Development control went and demolished the place. It's like they have even put it up again, and it is blocking the waterway. That was where the location where we picked we recovered the body of the person who died on the 25th in Lokogoma village, Dogongada. That was where we found his body. So the problem is that we really need the residents of FCT, the public, to cooperate with us and listen to our sensitization. The efforts we are even putting up now is that because of the COVID-19 protocol, what we are doing is we are trying our best to make sure we carry out our sensitization by using town criers in the villages, in different locations, in 5 languages: Hausa, English, Gbagi, Igbo, and Yoruba. We have flyers that we have given them. We have given the chiefs, they go ahead to use their town criers, because initially we used to put them together in the ESUS Palace. We get representatives from different locations. We show them video clips. That was when we started getting the high cooperation of the residents of FCT. When we show them video clips where they see flood wash a family away or wash some people away, when people get drowned, that was when it dawned on them that
shock therapy.
Exactly. So,
okay, let's pause here. Echego in Abakaleke, we don't know if the Skype is better now in terms of his own connection there in Abakaleke. Dr. Echego, we're listening to your very interesting explanation as to the nature of the soil, largely in Ebonyi, and why it doesn't appear to retain water and therefore flooding occurs. Just continue from where you stopped.
I was explaining the fact that 2/3 of the state is underlain by this shell. And one of the properties of shell is that it doesn't allow for easy permeability of water. From the central part of the state to the northern part is only in the southern part that is underlain by sandstone. And also the state is generally a tableland, and does not allow for easy runoff immediately after rain, coupled with the fact that most of the places that we initially scantily settled have dense population, particularly in the capital city and in most emerging urban centers in the state. So most of the land area that used to form available space for infiltration have all been taken over by the footprints of this development of buildings. And these are subtractions to the spaces that should have been available for infiltration. Coupled with that is the fact that most of some of the roads initially, before the coming in of our present governor, who is doing quite a lot to address most of the environmental challenges that we have in the state. Before now, we had some roads, many of the roads in the state that didn't have line drains. But the present governor is doing quite a lot to make sure that all the roads that are constructed and reconstructed in the state all have adequate and sizable side drains. So now, in addition to that, in the capital city in particular, the Nigerian Erosion and Watershed Management Project, assisted by the World Bank, is doing quite a lot in the capital city. At the moment, we are constructing a 19.13 kilometer flood drains. And beside that, we also have stormwater management master plans that have been produced for the capital city. And the governor is doing quite a lot in supporting the Ministry of Environment to make sure that all the drains are not clogged by garbages. Because some of the challenges is that these urban inhabitants and most of the, particularly children, once there's rain, you see children dumping refuse, dumping garbage into the available drains. And most of this reduce the capacity of these drains to, reduce the capacity of these drains. And that has been a major challenge. But the present governor is doing quite a lot in not only providing these conveyances on all the roads that have been constructed, but also in ensuring that these conveyances are wide enough to adequately flush out to evacuate all the flood waters. And that is quite, and the Ministry of Environment, as it is now, is highly encouraged and empowered by the state government to make sure that, in fact, our city, Abakaliki city, and most of the cities in our state, most of the urban areas are very clean, because these drainages are no longer serve as endpoint for this garbage. And because of that, we've been having an improved situation in the capital city and in other parts of the state. So that is the way it is in the capital city and in all parts of the state.
Are you saying that in Ebonyi State now is free from incidents of flooding? If that is not what you're saying, then I would like you to respond to my question, because you are driving the. I just want to get your. You are driving the Nigeria Erosion and Water Management Project, which is NUMAP. You are the coordinator. Almost every state in Nigeria has a particular, roadmap for flood mitigation and management, but we don't seem to see outcomes. I mean, some weeks ago, if not last week, there was a trending video on the social media of Ariare Market in Abia State, flooded and littered with all sorts of refuse and, waste and all that. So why are we still not seeing the kind of expected outcome in terms of flood mitigation if we have all these strategies?
No, there are outcomes there. People, some of the media, have visited our state. If you come to the state, like I explained, the entire capital city now is being, because we have three principal rivers that drain the capital city: the Udele, the Iyoku, and the Ebia River. And they all discharge into the larger river that is Ebonyi State that run through the entire the entire state. So at the moment, there are ongoing works, concrete drains all over the place. Apart from the one that His Excellency, our amiable governor, has provided, there are ongoing works that are at various levels of completions by the Ebonyi State Nigeria Erosion and Watershed Management Project that is being supported by our governor. So the outcomes are there. And in 2016, the capital city witnessed an unprecedented level of flood in the capital city and most parts of the district. But the situation is going down, significantly going down, and we are very hopeful that by the end of the completion of all the ongoing works that we have at hand, that the issue of flooding will be drastically reduced. Okay, of course, you can see the drains which I shared with you, the ongoing concrete drains which I shared with you. These drains, some of them are 20 meters in width and then 4 meters in depth. And they have been designed in such a way that they will have 100 years return period. So what it means is that even if all the entire area in the capital city is developed, that these flood drains that we have in place, that are ongoing, that are nearing completion, will be able to accommodate all the flood that will be witnessed by the district. And of course, we are very hopeful that these flood drains will be responding to the flood. And as the works are ongoing now, we'll also be looking at the responses of these drains to the flood waters in the capital city. So the outcomes are actually there. So I know that before now, we used to witness an unquantifiable losses in terms of lives, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of farmlands, and a lot of that. But that has drastically reduced.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Echegbu. Once again, let's bring in Professor Adeyewa. Professor Adeyewa, perhaps you give us an independent assessment as to how we are responding to flood management in Nigeria. Do you think that there is sufficient interagency cooperation and intergovernmental collaboration in dealing with flood issues? There are challenges every time relating to large water management in terms of desilting dams and so on and so forth. And then when you get to the urban areas, we keep talking about urban flooding and the perennial problem of drains that are silted. During the dry season, you won't see anybody. You are hardly likely to see anybody desilting the drains. When the rainy season now comes, that's when you see them trying to excavate. What are we just getting it right, or we're just paying lip service to all of this and then waiting for nature to take its course, sometimes disastrously?
Thank you very much for that beautiful question. Let me start on a good one. That is to say, the interagency cooperation. I really appreciate the fact that NISA, NIMET, of which we are having a very good collaboration because we train the students and we collaborate in development of models and so on. And then NEMA and others. I want to say that we are seeing a better collaboration. For example, you find NISA talking about the inputs from NIMET, and then, of course, NEMA is depending on what NISA and NIMET is doing. You also find ministries of environment doing their own work and not going solo. Years ago, we find that some people will be making predictions of floods, of rainfall and so on, and leaving NIMET apart. That, I think, has decreased and is wonderful. But let me say this. In many countries of the world, where they have even much more rainfall than Nigeria, they are doing better in terms of flood management. I need to make clear that although we are seeing increasing collaboration between agencies of government and even NGOs and so on, we need to increase this collaboration. And like I said, in countries where you have fewer agencies, they are doing far better. And I want to say this, as a scientist, as a meteorologist, that the climate change that we're talking about now, if the predictions of the IPCC, that is Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, it's really anything to worry about. That is to say that the climate may warm by 1.5 to 2 degrees It's like a normal human being catching fever. If you increase 1.5 to 37 degrees of a normal human temperature, he will begin to convulse. I mean, he will begin to find himself in a very dangerous situation. What I'm trying to say is this. Already now, if somebody wants to enter a building or even airplane, they will check the temperature and say that you are normal. Are we normal in Nigeria? The climate scenarios that our climate models are predicting is that Nigeria will suffer some catastrophes if we don't look into what we are doing now. For example, all over the world, the hurricanes are increasing because of climate change. The floodings are increasing. And so what we did 2012, that was not appropriate. We need to do better things, because if it happens again, we are now more numerous. We have larger cities now and so on. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to do better. Collaboration is good, but effectiveness, efficacy is very, very important. And so we need to be ahead of time. We need to be proactive and not reactive. I want to appreciate what government is doing, but we need to be ahead of the people. In Abuja, for example, we've heard what our wonderful lady has been saying, but the fact remains that when are we going to stop in our different places in Nigeria trying to catch up with urban development? That's what we do in Nigeria. We should be ahead. We should construct the roads, the drainages before people even come over. You dare not do it in some countries that you are building your infrastructures, factories and so on are being built, and then you expect the government to follow after you to bring the drainages, to bring the roads, to bring other things. It's not done. We should be ahead of people. And I pray that in the coming seasons that we'll do better, because the climate change that is coming is going to make things worse. And if we, by 2050, it is predicted that Nigeria will double in number, in population. So what happens to Lagos? What happens to Kano? Because then they will have gone to other places that they shouldn't have built. And so government and our planning agencies should be ahead of time, ahead of people. That is my advice. Thank you.
Right, Prof, thank you. We will return to you for the last time to probably prefer ways you think, sustainable ways, of course, that we can plan or mitigate flooding. But that will be after we've taken the number of tweets that we have. These are contributions from our viewers. Kingsley, you want to start off?
That's right, Mike Ayako. Now, it's incumbent on all of us to be very conscious of the flood alert and take adequate precautions because of the devastating effect in the country. The relevant regulatory agencies must also be on top of their duties and even sanction defaulters when it is inevitable.
All right, and Nandam Wiyep tweets, flood alert could as well be sent through SMS, TV, and radio messages, just like we are being alerted for the COVID-19, using the various languages, letting people know what steps to take when flood threatens and what we should do during and after a flood. Where could homeowners find information about flood, for instance?
Just flood insurance.
Flood insurance, I beg your pardon.
Yes, okay. Chris Simeon, flooding is disastrous. Rainy season is in top gear, so it's our responsibility to clear water channels and passages for the free flow of water, rainwater, to avoid destruction. I usually have a challenge with this prescription that persons or residents should be the ones to be clearing their drains. Now, you clear your drains, who evacuates it?
That's
a
big challenge, Kingsley.
If I'm supposed to be at work to earn money so I can pay taxes to the government, why would it be my responsibility to go and clear the drains? The primary responsibility where we fail is in not blocking the drains. We don't dispose of our refuse properly. People act out of just plain ignorance or sheer laziness or unavailability of waste disposal. But I keep hearing the prescription, clear your drains, as we used to have during environmental sanitation on a Saturday. People will come out, clear their premises, clear their drains, and then leave it on the road. And then the thing will kick there for another 2 weeks. Then the next environmental will come, by which time everything goes back into the gutter. Whose responsibility is it?
But Kingsley, before they answer, I think that should be personal responsibility. COVID-19, you are asked to take personal responsibility. That should be a personal responsibility. But the question will be, who evacuates the waste when you clear your drainage.
No,
that's a big challenge. That's another
I'm
challenge.
sorry, COVID-19 doesn't seem quite opposite in this instance, because we're talking about taking personal responsibility to avoid infection. I have generated garbage in my premises, and of course, if there's a waste disposal system, they will come and clear it. But if the drains in my locality, if the drains are silted, you are saying that I should be the one to go and clear it?
No, you see, Kingsley, the truth is that when you have refuse being dumped in your drainages around there, agreed, is the responsibility of the government to evacuate it. And we have the Environmental Protection Board. In FCT, they are very active. They have improved. You bear me witness. No. You see, they have improved.
Maybe in the capital city itself.
We have created Department of Environment in all the area councils. But again, I mean, I have refuse in front of my house. If the government doesn't come on time, won't I take it for my own safety? For me to be healthy myself and my family?
No, that's not the point I'm talking about. I'm not talking about refuse disposal. I'm talking about silted drains, gutters. If the gutters are slapped, it's my responsibility to go and be lifted.
No, we don't allow that. We do the desilting.
That's precisely what I'm referring to.
Yes, we do the desilting.
Not that I cannot dispose of my garbage.
I said it earlier on. We don't wait till the rainy seasons. What we do, we have started from January. We start before.
You know what I would advise. You've made this point before.
Yes.
Maybe you should, you and your staff and other officers, take a walk along major roads in the FCT, and they'll be looking at the manholes.
Yes,
I can assure you, just hang on a second, I can assure you that every other manhole you see is already kicked.
Precisely.
Kicked. All right.
And difficult to even...
Absolutely.
Anyway, let's move on now.
Yes.
Climate action. Thank you, Chris Simeon, for raising that issue for us. Now, Climate Action Zero Hunger says there is the urgent need to carry out a flood modeling and climate change vulnerability mapping of the country to identify areas that are most vulnerable to flooding. Now, many of the flooding experienced in Nigeria are man-made, caused by lack of planning.
Law Alpha says the present economic hardship occasioned by the outbreak of coronavirus make it difficult for people to relocate to safer areas should the floods come. So let the 3 tiers of government assist persons affected to relocate now.
Okay, Utulo Sunday, if massive awareness campaign against flood is carried out by, just like COVID-19 has been done, it will go a long way in helping the people, especially the rural areas. However, advanced technology could be sought to remodel flood activities.
Umwangugu Silvanus, it's a sincere and committed government that takes flood prediction seriously, ensuring that precautionary measures are taken and also that drainages are cleared, buildings and fences blocking waterways and access roads are taken out while constructing new drainages.
Dele Jack Solomon, the recent alert by NEMA that 102 LGAs in 28 states are at risk of flooding this year should be given priority by the relevant authorities. We expect synergy between ministry agencies concerned to provide measures to ameliorate potential effects.
Festus Akimboewa, whether we like it or not, floods happen. Nigerians living in areas prone to floods should pay attention to flood alerts and know what to do so they can reduce the misery that results.
Okay, I'll just paraphrase the next ones because of time. Mutana Farouk, do you think the flood alert on radio, TV, newspaper go down to those people that's in the rural areas? Effective communication should be employed in this regard.
Adamu Estefano says proper refuse disposal is key towards controlling floods, thereby allowing our drainages to be blockage-free. And this is where town planners are needed to come in and provide master plans that will cater for the basic human needs in our cities, yes.
Okay, Adamu Estefanos.
That's what I just took, yeah.
Okay, that's what
Ibrahim Tudu has one there.
Says flood, singing the same song annually, I don't get it. What states prone to flooding do with what do states prone to flooding do with ecological funds? And Okay, I think that's...
yeah, ecological funds, that's always been an issue. At least one former governor is in jail now on account of the mismanagement of ecological funds. These are ecological issues. We keep talking about it, and it was the mismanagement of that led to his conviction. Usman Banu Kantu, the truth of the matter is that government officials of the line MDAs, that's ministries, departments, and agencies, should take greater blame for being insensitive in allocating land prone to flooding, and in addition, government's inaction in addressing early warnings and response. So 2 issues there: allocation of lands or turning a blind eye when construction is going on in areas that ordinarily should not be developed.
Okay, Ibrahim Tudu sent another one, and of course he's also asking, what he's saying is the fact that sanitization of public, demolition of buildings and waterways, relocation of flood-prone villages to upperland, and strengthening of urban and regional planning are necessary to safeguard lives and property of people affected by flooding.
All right, so those are the twists that we can take in the meantime, Claire. Let's bring in again Ibrahim Anga of Anga. That's
Inga.
Inga. That's the pronunciation. I was going to say that it doesn't sound like you are upset, you know. So,
it's Inga. It's I-N, Kingsley. I-N.
Inga. Yeah, you know. I was talking more seriously now. We understand that some weeks down the line, the flooding is going to be a lot heavier. How prepared is Niger to forestall or otherwise take care of the consequential effects of the flooding coming?
Yeah, so far so good. We are prepared like any other year because we are familiar with it. The only difference that we used to have is the dimension the flooding used to come with. But it is a yearly activity for us in the state. And all our machineries have been reactivated for any of our eventuality. Recently, His Excellency have directed a land is secured for a community that has been a major problem in the state, which is Kiso. It's a community that is along the River Niger area, and the settlement side has been secured. I think works have commenced on the area, and also areas that were expecting to have flood have been penciled down, and upper land have been provided in case of any eventuality. And we are having challenges in the state. We're having challenges in the state. Issue of relocation resettlement is capital intensive. I'm happy somebody just tweeted in issue of ecological funds. I want the authorities concerned to have a rethink on ecological issue. It shouldn't be he who paid the piper dictate the tune. The dancers should also be considered. That is the state. We have a lot, and the resources available to the state is, I can tell you, is too meager for my state. Considering the land mass we're having, the allocation we used to have is too meager. Now, because of mismanagement, there should be a mechanism of checks and balance. The ecological fund doesn't come to state now. Contracts are awarded here in Abuja for state. The only thing the state participates in is send in projects you want. And there's no local participation in the contracts. We want the authorities concerned to look inward, to have a review. Let's give the state the money. Let the state bring up proposal, plans, projects, or what they want to do with the money. And there should be effective supervision by the authorities concerned for my state. Secondly, we were thinking we have solution to our problem when Hyperdeck has been approved. But unfortunately for us, we don't know what is even the bottleneck. That up to this moment, Hyperdeck is yet to kickstart. Which, if Hyperdeck is in place, it will, in a long way, reduce the hardship and give us a better way in handling our flooding situation in the state.
Yeah, we hope that APADEC will also learn from NDDC.
All right, let me put my last question to the Professor Adeyawa. NISA has warned that we are yet to, hit the peak of flooding this year, and Ondo State is one of those predicted, of course, to experience flash flood and coastal floods and all that. So, what, in your view, is sustainable way out?
Well, thank you very much. We thank the different agencies, NIMED, NASA, and others. I would want to suggest or advise a kind of what I would call integrated flood management and control system in Nigeria. As you can see, each state is not independent. We are all working together. So what happens in Anambra goes into Imo State and vice versa. So we need an integrated approach. And in that integrated approach of management and of control system of flooding in Nigeria, we are looking ahead, 50 years ahead. And we are planning, the first thing is to plan adequately by modeling what might happen. Suppose we have triple times the kind of flooding that we had in 2012, what will have happened, and so we plan. And the next thing is to build infrastructure. Sustainable infrastructure, interstate, federal, at local government level, and so on. Everything is interconnected so that we're all working together. And then we need to improve our emergency response to systems. As we can see, we have lost a lot of lives, livelihood and lives, and even infrastructure, social and economic infrastructure, they have been damaged. So we need to plan. You see, sometimes these things might look expensive, but life is even more expensive. And when you have damages, it might even be more damaging. So I would like to advise that we plan in an integrated and systemic manner in the whole of the country. China has done that. See, River Yangtze used to destroy a lot of lives. Now they have put up a system that is better, but it's not really perfect. So we can do likewise for River Benue, River Niger, and even the low-lying plains of Nigeria. It's systematic.
Oh, well, Prof, thank you very much there. We are pretty close to the end of the program. Let's get the closing thoughts of Carol of the Delta State Emergency Management Agency. I wanted to just ask you, in any eventuality, do you have your warehouses already stocked with supplies that you can deploy to persons who are impacted by floods?
Certainly. Presently, some of our warehouses are stocked. Because of the COVID-19 pandemic, the state government have been distributing palliative to different communities and all that. And we are still stocking preparatory that in case the flood comes, we'll be able to get to them with relief items and other things, sorts of livelihood. So we are prepared now. The state government is up to the game already.
All right, let's appreciate all of you for your contributions. Carol Ovemeso, Director Delta State Emergency Agency, and joining us via Skype from Asaba. I would like to appreciate you. And let me also appreciate Dr. Philip Uche Echegu, Project Coordinator, Nigeria Erosion and Water Management Project, Ebonyi State. Please send our regards to your amiable governor and tell him we are expecting him on Good Morning Nigeria someday. We've extended invitations to him. We are yet to get response from him. It's a pleasure to have you on our program, Doctor. And also, let me quickly appreciate Professor Zakaria Debo Adeye, Head of Department, Meteorological and Climate Science, and Dean, Deputy Vice Chancellor Development from the Federal University of Technology, Akure. Thank you very much, Prof. And back in the studio, Project, of course, hold on a moment, Ibrahim Inga, Director General, Niger State Emergency Management Agency. Thank you very much for joining me.
Very much.
And my dear sister and friend, Deputy Director, Forecasting, Response and Mitigation FCT, Florence Wenegeme. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Kingsley.
Yeah, so well, that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today and indeed for the week. We thank you for being with us. Good Morning Nigeria returns on Monday, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, take personal responsibility, stay safe and be well. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
And if you want to be a star, connect with us. NTA will stand against rape and rapists. Have a pleasant day.
She cries in anguish and in pain. She bears the scourge of her grief. She toils in vain for justice and succumbs to silence. He gloats over his malady. Like a beast, he pounces with no remorse. Her cry means nothing. Her pain feeds her shame. Like an orphan, she's left to grieve in solitude. But no more will she cry in vain. Her adversaries will henceforth bear the brunt of their cruelty. Rape is evil. Rape is a plague, a pandemic of monumental consequences. We must unite and kick it out of our society.
Connect with NTA and stand against rape and rapists. This message is brought to you by the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me remind us all that this pandemic is spreading like wildfire. We must all arise to fight this potent and invisible common enemy by adhering to the guidelines and protocols for COVID-19, which includes personal hygiene, social distancing. We must wear masks in public places, obeying the stay-at-home order,